when Yngwie Malmsteen hit the scene, he blew us all away. I mean, he floored us. And when he was leaving that band, I thought, well, you know, there's opportunity. And I auditioned for the band. I didn't think I was going to get the gig because I didn't sound anything like Yngwie. So when Dave Roth came along, it was an opportunity to kind of stretch that rock and roll muscle. And we kind of resonated well because he has an obsidian, he has kind of a bizarre sense of quirky humor. And so do I, you know. Dave with Edward was so beloved by so many people. Who's this other guy? And he's no Edward. You know, whatever goes on. But I really paid no attention to that because I loved the way Edward played, but I wouldn't want to play like anybody else but me. Their Whitesnake album that sold 25 million copies, you know, it came out and it was a great record. And I just love great singers. And Coverdale was a monster. I mean, come on.
Just moving on a little bit then. I spoke recently with Graham Bonnet, and he spoke very, very highly of you. He said you were amazing, and he remembers telling his parents that he's got a guitar player in who plays the guitar like it's a piano and all that sort of stuff. And what's your memories of your time with Graham and with Alcatrazz?
Well, it started out kind of where Frank had basically disbanded the band, got himself a synclavier, and started working on that. So I wanted to go out and start doing some things because I couldn't understand in my head how I was going to put a solo band together and go out there. So I thought it would make more sense to join an established band. And when Yngwie Malmsteen hit the scene, he blew us all away. I mean, he floored us. And when he was leaving that band, I thought, well, you know, there's opportunity. And I auditioned for the band. I didn't think I was going to get the gig because I didn't sound anything like Yngwie. But I really liked the guys. You know, they were really good guys. And Graham was he had a great sense of humor, you know, and he was just very kind of it was my first opportunity to be in a band with somebody that was European.
Yeah. So
that was great. But when he would sing, I just couldn't believe it. The power that came out of his voice, out of his mouth, it was pretty stunning, you know, because I had, before that, I had never been involved with a singer like that.
Yeah.
So everything was kind of new. And it was really good for me because the guys trusted me because I was very hands-on and I could write, you know, I wrote the music and I liked working with Graham. You know, I'd come up with the music and he would put the melody and the lyrics. And like I say, he was a powerhouse singer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And really great sense of humor.
Fantastic stuff. And in terms of lead singers and legendary singers, another one came along not long after. Dave Lee Roth. I mean, he was leaving one of the world's biggest rock bands at the time, and he came back with a solo record and a solo band and that sort of thing. And you were part of that band behind him. Now, obviously, with your background with Zappa, and you've done a solo record, you then with Alcatrazz. How did the recording and the writing process come for Eat 'Em and Smile? I mean, was it a collaborative thing? Did you get to put your ideas across as well?
Well, yeah, my ideas were being depended on because I was the guitar player, and Dave doesn't, he doesn't write guitar parts, So it was very cool because throughout my teenage years, I was a teenager in the 70s, and I was really into rock music, Led Zeppelin, Queen, Deep Purple, all that really good, and then progressive rock. So I had the rock and roll thing in my soul, so to speak. White boy from New York, Italian, rock and roll. You could call it metal, but it's a misnomer compared to what the word means today, but heavy metal, that's what we kind of alluded to it being. So it was always there in me. So when Dave Roth came along, it was an opportunity to kind of stretch that rock and roll muscle. And we kind of resonated well because he has an obsidian, he has kind of a bizarre sense of quirky humor. And so do I, we're both kind of kooky in a way. So it worked, like something like Yankee Rose with the talking guitar. I mean, sophisticated rock stars don't do stuff like that. I suppose, it's just too corny, but it was substantiated by some badassery, playing from the whole band. The energy that the band created. We felt indestructible. And Dave, obviously, he depended on his band to come to him with music that he can then approve or disprove, and then the stuff he liked, he'd write lyrics and melodies to, kind of like Graham. So yeah, that was fantastic, because not only did I have the freedom to play anything I really wanted, I had to push myself to go beyond my even beyond my own vision, so to speak. So I'll say the shadow of Edward hanging over me, I didn't feel pressure, because if I would have felt pressure, it would have meant I was competing with Edward. And you can't do that. That's foolish. You can't compete with Edward, So when I was making those records with Dave, I was very at ease, they were very enjoyable. I loved getting in the studio and knocking out those guitar parts. I didn't know what people were going to think. I can't control that. I just knew that I had an opportunity to push it, to push the bar. And I just did my best to do that, and I enjoyed it. We had a great time. Touring with Dave Roth that was fantastic.
Obviously, you worked with Frank Zappa before that and Alcatrazz and things like that. But in terms of Dave Lee Roth, I mean, his level of fame at that stage was absolutely massive, wasn't it? And the album you worked on, Eat 'em and Smile, was a massive commercial hit. So how did that kind of resonate with you? Was that something that it sat nicely with you, the kind of big commercial success that came with all that?
Well, that kind of success affects people differently. Sometimes you don't even realize it's happening as you're going through it. At least that was the case for me. With Frank Zappa, if you play with him and you leave his band, you got to go find a gig. It's not like you all of a sudden become somebody that's sought after. You put your time in, and it's a great gig, but joining somebody like Dave Roth's band, that's different. You're now a part of a group that is a personality that fits into a field where now you're known, and especially if the voice behind David Lee Roth, I mean, the guitar behind the voice of Dave was Edward Van Halen, and all of a sudden, who's the guitar behind the voice now? We have to see how it sits with us, because we're so used to Edward and Dave. So the recognition and the attention that was paid to me at that time that Eat 'em and Smile came out was big. I think, I say big, but it was in a small sliver of the music community.
Yeah.
Rock and roll, and plus we were in the basement, in Dave's basement, for like some maybe a year and a half, and just writing and jamming. And then finally we went to record. And during all this period, there was stuff going on in the outside world, but I wasn't a part of it. You know, I mean, as far as what was going on in the press, what is Dave Roth doing? Everything was kept very secret. And I was just going into a guy's basement and playing. And then we went into the studio and recorded. It was kind of like when I made Crossroads. I was just kind of going into the studio and filming. Yep. And then you go home and you are a normal person. And then all of a sudden it comes out and everybody sees it. And then you go out and people are like, hey, there you are, you know? And you're like, well, yeah, you know, and then it takes an adjustment. It was an adjustment because it was interesting at first, you know, especially with Crossroads, because you can make hit records till you're blue in the face, but be in one hit movie, you know, and just have a little part. And hey, there's that guy, you know, every place you go. So that took an adjustment. It was fun. It was never my fame with those bands, or my recognition with those bands, was never so much that I couldn't lead a normal life, you know. Mm-hmm. But it was really nice to be recognized for your contribution, because I started reading some nice things about what I had played on Eat 'Em and Smile and the way I played. So I felt I don't know how other people may perceive it, but I felt accepted. You know, I felt well supported in that role with Dave, because it could have been very precarious, because Dave with Edward was so beloved by so many people. Who's this other guy? And he's no Edward, you know, whatever goes on. But I really paid no attention to that, because I loved the way Edward played, but I wouldn't want to play like anybody else but me. Why would you? You know, because then you're not you, you know. So I was very content and happy with what I had done, what I had contributed. Was it great? I don't know. I just know I did the best I could. And it was just so nice when it was not rejected.
Complete opposite, absolutely. And then you obviously, Eat 'Em and Smile, Skyscraper came out, and then I think I read that you'd left because you're wanting to pursue your own solo work and work on stuff that you've been working on for a long time. But then the offer came to join Whitesnake, and now, was that just too good an opportunity to turn down at the time?
Yeah, I had finished the Skyscraper tour before I joined Dave Roth. I was working on Passion and Warfare, because it's still my fascination for recording, and especially this brand of music in my mind. You have to honor your creative impulses, or you slip into depression. And I had to honor them. And at that point, it meant turning my back on rock stardom to create Passion and Warfare. In my mind, that's what I was doing. I was surrendering my career, because the music for Passion and Warfare I knew it was very different. It wasn't Dave Roth. It wasn't Whitesnake. It wasn't anything that I had heard, you know, that you could point to and say, hey, that's like Avia Musicom by Eric Johnson, or hey, that's like Blow by Blow by Jeff Beck. Nothing. Or Surfing with the Alien. I mean, all of those records, you can't really compare them to each other. So Passion and Warfare was part of that, because it was a authentic offering from my inner ear. But then I couldn't understand how I was going to go out and tour it. Yeah. Because it was one record. It was a very dense record, very complex in a sense. And I was always more comfortable with having a front man and just being the guitar player. I didn't know how I'd be able to negotiate standing in front of a stage playing instrumental guitar music, you know? And the Whitesnake gig was on the radar right at the exact same time. So I thought, well, it would make much more sense to tour with Whitesnake and make a record with them. And, you know, for the momentum of that other side of my career. And lucky for me, I really liked the music of Whitesnake. Back then, their Whitesnake album that sold 25 million copies, you know, it came out and it was a great record. And I just love great singers. And Coverdale was a monster. I mean, come on, you know, I watch that guy get on stage every night and deliver like a boss, you know. So I thought, yeah, man, I want in. And it was great. When I got into the band, all the music was written and recorded for the Slip of the Tongue record, and I just had to put the guitars on it. And there was another really great group of guys. If anybody was difficult, it was me. You know, I was a bit of a prima donna. I came from Dave Roth, and with Dave Roth, you learn certain things. You know, how to navigate the business and navigate the magazines and the press and things like this. So, and plus, I had Passion and Warfare out. And it was blowing up while I was touring with Whitesnake. So yeah, you know, I did the Slip of the Tongue, and we did a huge tour, and it was fantastic. At the end of it, David was going through some personal things. You know, he was going through a divorce, and so he disbanded everything. But I knew that just instinctually. Of course, I didn't know for sure, but I kind of felt that I'd do a record and a tour with them, and I'd have to return to the quirky music that was in my head. And I did.
And obviously, Passion and Warfare you've spoken about. I have to touch on Sex and Religion as well. It's one of my good friends. It's one of his favorite albums of all time. I love the mix of the heavy and the light on there. And how did you go about making the record then on the back of the success of Passion and Warfare?
Well, I still kind of felt like I wanted to have a lead singer. And I started looking for one, and it was difficult, but Relativity Records, who I was signed to at the time, sent me a tape, and one of them was of Devin. Yeah. And he was a teenager at the time even, and I couldn't believe when I heard his voice, because I needed a singer. So I contacted him, and that's how we hooked up. And he came in to visit me, and man, he was bizarre, but he was extremely talented. Not bizarre. Bizarre isn't the right word. He was funny. And a teenager, you know, I mean, an absolutely incredible singer. And I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to put a super group together and go out there and create a record that had more accessibility than Passion and Warfare, but had vocals and also some compositional elements. So it wasn't like straight ahead rock and roll. Metal, heavy metal was just coming in, and I was being influenced by that through Devin. So some of the stuff was very, very heavy, but it was melodic. And I finally had a singer that I could work with. So I built, I mean, if you listen to that record, there's oceans of vocal harmonies and things like that. And Devin was great to work with in the studio because he was eager, and he was patient, you know. he didn't need a 5-star hotel and this kind of thing. But he was also incredibly talented in his own right. And that was kind of squelched in my band because I just needed him as a singer, So I never really, I didn't know how brilliant he was as a creator, a musical creator, because I didn't allow it, basically, a little bit here and there, but I had my vision and I knew what I wanted to do. And we collaborated on some things, but it wasn't until later when Devin started making his solo music that I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that was there, and because he is, in my book, a bona fide genius. He's as brilliant as they come at the thing that he does. And I think that his experience in my band was to a degree helpful for him in launching his own career and his own navigation of the studio, because he does all that too, and he's incredibly prolific. But we did a tour and it had its moments, Devin was always entertaining. I can tell you that. You never knew what he was going to do. He was unpredictable and he was bold and he was, did I say unpredictable?
I think you did.
Yeah. And he would just do these crazy things. So it was constantly entertaining. I knew it was frustrating for him because he had so much to offer and it was bubbling inside of him and he was trapped in the Vai cage, doing music that he, maybe he does. It's not necessarily what he would do, but he was a good sport about it.
So, well, we'll just move on to your guitar as well. I mean, it's an iconic part of you and what you are, your identity. I mean, the famous story wasn't it, people were looking for you to be their brand, the face of their brand, use their guitars, and you basically said, look, I want these requirements. If you can come back to me with these, then I'll go with you. And Ibanez came back and they responded the best. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, what happened was, working with Frank, I realized if you want something, you can just build it. Or if you want to change something, you just change it. So it was kind of sacrilegious to alter guitars. Like if you had a Les Paul or a Strat, you don't drill holes in it and do it. But Frank did that. So I thought, well, there were certain things, certain aspects about conventional guitars that I like, but there was limitations. Like I liked Strats, but I wasn't crazy about the sound. And the single coil pickups weren't rock and roll for me. And I didn't like that it only had 22 frets and you couldn't. So, and the Les Paul, I loved Les Pauls, but they didn't have whammy bars. So I just decided to go to this little music shop and design a guitar for me. And it was very naive, very innocent. And I had no expectations of it, of anything happening with it except for me. But it really had some creative, innovative things worked into it. And I didn't know. I just said, I want 24 frets on a Strat style body. That was unique at the time. And the cutaway should be like this so I could reach the notes. It seemed so stupid to me that they would make guitars with cutaways and frets, but you can't reach them. Why? Nobody wants to shake up the apple cart. So I'm like, no, you got to cut it away. And then, the pickup configuration was unique because it would split coils in certain positions. I didn't know any of this. I would just say, hey, can you make it do this? And then, it had a floating tremolo. And this was the first time they existed like that, because the Floyd had just come out. And I wanted to be able to pull way up on the the whammy bar. The Floyd Rose was a locking tremolo system, and I wanted to be able to pull up on the bar really high. And I just looked at it and I realized there was just some wood in the way, so I hacked it out, and that was like the first floating trem setting bridge. So I had this guitar, and I had 4 of them made. And then when I joined Dave Roth's band, a lot of the guitar companies were interested in having me endorse their guitars. But, I said, well, thanks, but I got this one. And then they said, well, we'll make it for you. So I thought, well, that would be convenient if I had a company making the exact guitar that I designed and that I liked. But all the guitars that these companies, I sent out the design. I said, well, make me this guitar. And inevitably, and I said, whoever makes the best one, I'll use. And inevitably, they'd send me back their guitar with my name on it, like a lot of times signature series guitars for a guitarist are the brand's standard guitar with a couple, like a certain fret wire, a certain kinds of pickups in it. It's not a reconstruction of the entire guitar. That didn't become popular until more later. And the Jem was one of the first, because it was a whole rebuild.
Yeah. Because
even when Ibanez sent me, when I sent them the Jem, I said, make me this. The first thing they gave me was this. They did the same thing the other companies did. They gave me their guitar, their idea of what I would like. And I hated it. I'm like, why give me that guitar? It's just like, it has nothing to do with what I want. So I just thought, okay, forget these companies. I'm just going to have my own guitar made for me. But then Ibanez said they got it. They're like, okay, we better make what he wants. And they made the Jem. And I thought it was fantastic, and now I had this company making this guitar. And then they said, well, we'd like to make this for other people. And I thought, well, okay, and then you work a deal. And the deal I worked was also unprecedented. And it worked great for everybody, the fans, the people that liked the guitar. It kind of struck a nerve that was great for Hoshino, Ibanez. It was great for me. And it's been a lovely, amazing, creative relationship, prosperous, abundant we're going to be rolling on 40 years pretty soon. Yeah.
Incredible.
It's a great relationship. It's one of those things in the music, in business, in any business you're in. It's so nice to be able to look back at these very long relationships, fruitful, enjoyable,
trusted,
creative, trusted. And I have a lot of them, Larry DiMarzio, Sterling Ball, Larry for the pickups, Sterling with the strings, so many, it's nice.
Fantastic. And obviously you kept busy for many, many years. You've always done different projects, released many albums. You're always doing your master classes. There's the touring, that sort of thing. And I think you've been on the road in Europe and South America recently. And tell us about that. What can people expect from these concerts?
Well, this tour started, we kicked it off in support of the Inviolate record. Inviolate was my last instrumental studio record. And it's one of the record came out a lot better than I was expecting. It was received very well. Another blessing, And we kicked off this tour last summer, and I really wanted to do a comprehensive world tour. I've done a bunch of them, and they take me to all corners of the world. And we did a first European leg in Western Europe, and then we did a full-on American leg in all the main cities and stuff. And then we went back and did Eastern Europe, and then we just finished Latin America. Go to Asia, and I've got 10 shows in China. They tell me I'm the first artist to go into mainland China on tour.
Okay.
That many shows, which I love doing that. And then we used to, I used to go to Russia all the time. Unfortunately, can't do that now. But then we, kind of work our way down through Asia, Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan. Then we go to Malaysia and Indonesia, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Jakarta, Vietnam. And then we are in Australia and New Zealand. None of this is announced because it can change. Yeah. Where this is what I'm planning. When nothing is written in stone until we actually make an announcement. So I'm just kind of giving you preliminary thoughts. And then after that, it's the Middle East. I'm trying to get to places like Dubai and Abu Dhabi. We may have offers from Egypt, Africa, India, Tel Aviv. So this is what I'm hoping for. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of, in the works. And then then it's Christmas. And then it's G3 in America for a little bit. And then it's Joe and I are talking about going out and touring together. And then there's some other things, so there'll be a lot of touring, and which is nice because I really do enjoy touring.
I was going to say you could hear the light in your voice when you're talking about touring. I speak to some people, and although they like being on the stage and they like playing for the audiences, touring it kind of gets them down, especially after this many years of doing it. But to you, it sounds like it excites you.
Yeah, I like waking up in different cities. In the beginning, like with Frank, no. The way that he toured, flying on a plane every day, those kinds of sound checks, gigs, having to practice all the time, no. After that tour, I thought I'm never touring again. But then when I went out with Dave Roth, it was like just party time. You're a king. You don't have to do sound check. You travel on a bus. You get to sleep all you want. You get to a new city it's fun little towns, and it's a whole different kind of a thing. So I started to focus on those things that I really enjoyed about touring, because that's how you get around hating stuff. You focus on what you like. It takes a little bit of willpower. Yeah. But then once you start doing it, you start having a great time. So the things that I always focus on when I'm traveling and touring, it's the culture. I love seeing all these different cultures. I mean, I've toured, I've played. I was one of the first artists to go to communist China and play, and Russia. I went to Russia in the 90s, or in the mid 90s, and South America and the Baltics. Yeah. I waited. I remember I would call my agent and I'd say, listen, I want to go to Slovenia, Slovakia, Yugoslavia, at the time of Yugoslavia. And, and he said, you can't go there. Nobody goes there. So finally it started to open up, and I started touring Eastern Europe. It's just fantastic. I mean, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Turkey, Greece, Croatia. They're part of every tour for the past ever since the late 90s. And it's fascinating. They're all diverse. The food is different, the culture is different, the architecture is different, the people are different, the audiences are different. So I started embracing these things as glorious life experiences, because you know what? They are. And they just turn into that. Now, sometimes it's a challenge, like if you have to fly and do back-to-back shows, then you got to learn how to go to sleep. But for the most part, it's a piece of cake. You can only ever do one thing at a time. And if that one thing is taking a step onto a tour bus, that's that one thing. There's nothing hard about it. It's all in the head.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
People, there's this rumor that it's hard to tour. And of course it has its challenges. Of course, if you're not prepared for it, but if you focus on those things that you can appreciate, and that goes for anything, then your experience of doing that thing changes. And what's your alternative?
Absolutely.
Being a miserable son of a bitch. That's your
it. That is it. That is it indeed. Well, you've got so much in the pipeline, still not confirmed yet. What's the best way for people to keep in touch with you and find out when these things do land and do get confirmed?
Oh, my Instagram, my social media, my website, vai.com. Same suspects that most artists have.
Fantastic. Lovely stuff. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Steve. I've loved this last hour or so. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And I just want to say that I really enjoyed this touring on this record, and all the folks that have come to the shows. You really got me, man. They've risen the bar. They've been so supportive. We really have a great time, and I want to thank them and thank you.
Thank you so much. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You got it. Take
Lovely.
care.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.